Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It has been 2 weeks now since I've filmed an update, and I have gotten a lot of things accomplished in those 2 weeks. When I didn't film last week, it was basically just because I hadn't read anything. I really hadn't made a lot of crafting progress, so I was just kind of like, you know what? Let's wait and see what I get done by the end of May and just kind of do a wrap-up video. Well, I finished quite a lot of things in the last 2 weeks, to the point of I am going to split this into 2 separate videos, a book video and a crafting video. So what you're watching right now is going to be the booktube portion of my filming this weekend. So grab yourself a cup of tea. This is actually tea today, or coffee, or if you're watching this in the afternoon and evening, some wine perhaps. But actually it is just a little after 9 o'clock in the morning. I met my parents at a restaurant for breakfast this morning. They are going to help my cousin move this weekend in a different city. I am not going because I already had some things planned, so I figured I would just meet them early for breakfast and, you know, wish them luck and come back here and film. The reason I decided to split my videos into 2 this week is because I have a lot that I have to share with especially booktube. I want to do my May wrap-up because, let's face it, there are only 3 days left in the month, and I just figured I'm not going to pressure myself to finish anything else. I may, but I kind of doubt it at this point. And I kind of just want to relax for the next few days and gear up for June. And so that brings me to, after I tell you my May wrap up, I'm going to tell you my June pile of possibilities. I do have some buddy reads that I, feel compelled to actually make those a priority. But everything else is just going to be like, if I feel like reading it, I'm going to read it. If I don't, I don't. So I feel like summer is like a good time to just be like, whatever, just do what you want. So, but I do have a lot of books on that list for my possibilities pile. So we'll see what happens. But, oh, and then the last bit is I have a book haul. Yay! I don't normally do book hauls, and I'm a little concerned that a little over 2 years into my booktube game, I'm gonna have to start getting more bookshelves. Because right now I don't really have a lot of bookshelves. I'm a little bit more of a minimalist book buyer than a lot of people on booktube. But recently, I've kind of acquired a lot of books, and I'm concerned. So, you may have finally gotten me. But anyway, let's just move on to the May wrap-up. So I read, or will have read by the end of today, 6 books in the month of May. The one book that I haven't quite finished yet, but I have to finish by tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern, because I am participating in a live discussion, and I don't want to sound like an idiot, is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Krista from Books and Jams has been running a read-along of this book on her channel with, I believe, like a rotating group of like 6 of us from BookTube that are either Christians or just interested in learning about religion, that kind of thing. So I have participated in a couple of her live streams. My internet, for some reason, has not been liking these live streams, and I have not had a good connection and got kicked off a couple different times. So I'm hoping that I've figured out what the problem is and this last one will work. We'll see. So I may or may not be on the live stream tomorrow. I don't know. But either way, I would like to finish this book. I have been tabbing the heck out of it and highlighting, and it's just been a really good, encouraging read for the Christian walk. The first book that I finished in May was Beyond the Gathering Storm by Janette Oake. This is the 5th book in the Canadian West series by Janette Oake, and I have been buddy reading this with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and we are this is the second to the last book in the series, and I'm kind of sad that it's going to be over soon, but I've really enjoyed the series, and it's a Christian book series, and sometimes Christian fiction art can be a little hit and miss for me. So going into this series, I was a little trepidatious about what it was going to be like, but I was pleasantly surprised at just how real and honest these characters and these books were. They aren't super preachy, but the characters are very devout and very faithful to their religion, which is, Christianity. But they don't shove it down people's throats. They let people know that it is important to them and it is the most important thing to them. But basically, if those people don't accept that and they won't accept them for who they are, they're like, okay, bye. And I like that. So this book is a time jump in which we are now following the adult adopted children of the original main characters, Elizabeth and Win, Henry and Christine. And we are following them as they kind of struggle through young adulthood in, I would say, the early 1900s. And they are now living in Toronto. They have come back from the Northern Territories. So this is a little bit more city-centric than all the past books have been. And that was interesting. I would say that the setting for this was not as enjoyable for me. I don't typically love city-centered things. And Berna and I, the entire time, were worried about the character of Christine and how Janette Oake was going to finish off her story. And I'll just say that because I don't want to, give anything away. But we were both pleasantly surprised. And Henry's side of the story was probably my favorite, though. And I will say that I did miss Elizabeth and Win in this. They were part of the story, but obviously not the biggest part. Is what it is. I still gave it 4.5 stars. The second book I finished in May was Romance of a Shop by Amy Levy. This is a Victorian novel that centers around 4 sisters. Let me see if I can remember all their names. Phyllis, Lucy, Fanny, and Gertrude. And they are now orphans. They're adults, but their father has just died and kind of left them mostly penniless. And they previously were more genteel, but they now need to figure out what to do with themselves. It was kind of customary for unwed women to just be kind of shipped off to family to kind of become nannies and things like that whenever they, lost their fortunes, and so that they didn't tarnish their reputations or whatever. But these 4 women decide to open up a photography shop. And that is really pretty interesting. I read this for Kate Howe's Patreon Victorian Book Club, and we had our Zoom discussion, and I really liked it. It was a short book, and it did feel like it could have been longer, and that we could have gotten more fleshed out stories among the four sisters. It kind of, the first half of the story was really pretty interesting and kind of just like daily life kind of things. And then the second half of the story just like really kind of made it, just went wild and kind of almost became a sensation novel. And I didn't mind that. I thought that was kind of fun, but I do agree that it could have been longer, and we could have gotten more detail about the characters and the men in their lives, and just different goings on that happened that we maybe just got a brief reference to. So that in that case, it was a little bit like almost manic, that like she would fly to different things, fly through different stories, and wouldn't like stop very long on each character. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Next book I finished was The Little Wedding Island by Jaimie Admans. This is a book that we are going to be discussing tomorrow on Sunday, the 29th? No, 30th. For our Bitter Single Ladies Read Romance book club that I run with my friend Angie from Literary Labors. This is a romance that centers around two people who write for competing magazines. The woman works for a bridal magazine, and the man works for like kind of a manly man magazine. That he is very critical of everything, and he does not like love, and he ends up publicly berating a couple who has their wedding kind of featured in her magazine, and he publicly kind of berates them that their love isn't real. And Bonnie, the writer of the bridal magazine, publicly comes back at him. So basically, both of them get in trouble by their bosses for causing all of this, bad press, basically, for their companies. So they simultaneously get sent to this island called Little Wedding Island, where it is reported that the church on the island, every wedding that they perform has never had a divorce. And they get sent there because any reporter that ever goes there can't get any information on how this could possibly be. So obviously it is a romance. So these people, they just randomly meet, and it's kind of a hate to love kind of a romance thing. So I'm not going to say anything else about it. Come join us at our live show tomorrow at 2 p.m. EST, and we will talk about our feelings about it. So, but it was definitely a very interesting read. The next book I read was A New Song by Karon, and this is part of the Mitford Years series that I have been reading through with my friends Kate Howe and Angie from Literary Labors, and Chelsea from Voyage of a Time Wanderer. And we are doing a read-along this entire year of the Mitford Years series, and this is the 5th installment in that series. And again, I won't talk about it a lot here. I will link the live show that we did last night about the series, or about the book, A New Song. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than the other three girls, but I can definitely, after talking to them, I'm kind of like rethinking it a little bit and thinking, yeah, that probably wasn't like done super well, or that character was annoying or whatever. But I will say that this one does not take place in Mitford. This takes place in a new island town. So I read a lot of island books this week, and and Father Tim is now being a temporary interim pastor at a new church, and he has basically left Mitford, and we had to kind of learn an entire new town, which I kind of didn't like a lot at first, but I did kind of get used to it, and I liked the people, but I can't say that I got real connected to them because in my head they are temporary, and I just kind of wanted to get back to Mitford. So, but yes, there was a good discussion about it. We kind of went out on some tangents, but they were fun tangents. So, if you want to watch that live stream, I will link it down below. And last but not least, I finished my reread of Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I wanted to finish this in time to participate in a Zoom discussion today with, again, Kate Howe and Karon from Katie Books. And I think a few other people were reading along too, because it was kind of a challenge of Kate to have Karon read Wives and Daughters, and she thought that he would love it. I don't know if he will, but I love it, and it was a joy to reread it. And I hadn't read it in a couple of years, and this was only my second read through of it. So I picked up on a lot of things that I had forgotten about, or just like hadn't picked up on my first reread, and it was just lovely. And I love everything that Elizabeth Gaskell ever wrote. I mean, I still have a couple books of hers to read, but I have no fear that I won't love these as much as everything else. But so far, Wives and Daughters is still the standout for me, even above North and South. I love Wives and Daughters. It's more my speed than the North and South. So I hope that at least Karon can appreciate Wives and Daughters. We'll see. I'm interested in how this is gonna go. Okay, so that is the end of my May wrap up. So let's move on to the June plans. Okay, so the first book that I plan to read in June is When Tomorrow Comes by Janette Oak. This is the last in the Canadian West series that I have been buddy reading with Berna. And this one looks like it's going to follow the kids again, Christine and Henry, as they move on from whatever the events were at the end of the last book. I'm not going to spoil it, but it also looks like World War I is starting to ramp up during this book. So I have a feeling that, being that Henry is part of the Royal Canadian Police, and Christine is probably going to meet someone that in some way is going to be involved in the war. I assume it's going to be quite an intense read. So, but like all Janette Oak books, I think they're going to turn out just fine. Now, for the next book that I plan to read in June, the cover that I have is very uninteresting. So I will end up putting the picture of the more colorful cover up here, but I'll show you what's on my Kindle right now. And the next book that I plan to read is Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson. And this is how the Persephone edition looks on my Paperwhite Kindle. Real boring. But this was what was available on Kindle, and that was the route I needed to go, because for some reason my library does not have a physical copy of this book. I don't know why. But anyway, I'll pop a picture of the much more attractive cover up here. But this is the book that won the World Book Day battle that Kate Howe participated, well, and I participated in, but she ran at the beginning of May, or maybe the end of April. I don't remember when it came out, but there were about 6 of us, and we all picked a book and read like 10 minutes in a chapter during a live stream, and then you all got to vote on which one we read for a read-along in the month of June for a week, starting on the 5th of June and ending with a live show on June 12th. And the book that was picked was Kate's book, Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. So I think we are all really excited that this one won. Like, we all were, pushing for our own books, but ultimately I'm excited to read this book. It just sounds like it's a really fun story, and I honestly don't know much about it, and I just know that it's just about a woman who decides that she's going to live to her fullest for a full day, and the book takes place over a 24-hour period. I just kind of wish that I could have gotten the nicer cover, and I guess I could have bought the book on Amazon, but this was a lot cheaper. And yeah, so we're trying to utilize the Kindle a little bit more than previously, because as I mentioned in the beginning bits, I've bought a lot of books recently, and I'm gonna need more bookshelves. And while that's not a horrible problem to have, I live in a small place. So, Now, this is probably going to end up being one of the last books that I read in June, but it's just the next one that I grabbed. So we will be reading the next installment in the Mitford Years series, A Common Life, and it is The Wedding Story. And I believe at this point we are going back in time to when Father Tim marries his wife. I'm pretty sure that's where this is going to go. And this is a very short book, which, Kate has said that she kind of wishes she had put 2 books into 1 month, so that we could, because as of right now, we are not, we don't have like the last 2 or 3 books in the series in our read along, because we only took 1 book a month, but we probably could have squeezed them in had we known that this book was going to be so short. But because of all the books I have on my TBR, I am kind of glad that we only have this short little book to read. But I'm glad that we are getting to read The Wedding Story, because I forget in which book he decides that he wants to marry his wife, but it kind of jumped from, I want to marry her, to, oh, they're married. And I was like, what? We spent an entire book on waiting for Father Tim to get up the courage to propose to her, and now you didn't even give us a wedding. What the heck, Jan Karon? So I think this is what this is going to be. So I'm excited. And now we have the Behemoth, Les Mis. Now, do not fear. I don't plan to read all of this in 1 month. No. But my friend Felicia from Little Prairie Library, who I highly encourage you to check out. I highly encourage you to check out all the channels I'm going to link below. But Felicia, she needs more subscribers, man. And she's just very, very lovely. And she bought me this book for my birthday. And I am loving it. So we are going to be reading the first part of this big, massive book in June. We're going to take the next 5 months and read just 1 part a month. So it's going to be very manageable. I'm perfectly happy with that arrangement. There is a read-along going to be happening with Victoria from A Musical Bookworm, and she has some other people joining her, and I can't think off the top of my head, but they are going to be reading this whole thing in 2.5 months. So if you are looking to read this book, I would encourage you to hop over to Victoria's channel and check out that read-along. But Felicia and I had already decided we were going to read this together, and we want to take it slow. So we are just going to read the first part in June, and I am very much looking forward to it. And I am going to try to physically read this from this book without getting an audiobook. we'll see how that works out, but I really, really want to physically read this. The next book is a buddy read with my friend Danny from Spinelli Speaks and a commenter, Janette, and we are going to be reading the first part in the Kristin Lavransdatter by Sigrid Undset trilogy, I think. I think it's a trilogy. We decided just to read the first part of this book as well. But I was able to somehow get a Kindle copy of this book for like, I don't know, maybe $2. And it's all, as far as I can tell, it's all 3 parts. It's the entire story. So I'm very excited that I got it for so cheap. And Danny, being the thrifting queen that she is, will be very proud of me also. I don't know how that happened. I think I had some kind of credits from Amazon or something, but yeah, so we are going to be reading the first part, which is called The Wreath. And honestly, I have no idea what this is about, other than it's a Norwegian classic, and it centers on this woman, Kristin Lavransdatter. And I think it kind of just goes through her life. She may be royalty? I might just be making that up. I don't know. So I have absolutely no clue what this is about, but I am excited to read this because at the beginning of the year, I had this little idea that I was going to try to read books and classics and things from around the world and not just like Europe and America, or not like Britain and America, and that were translated or just like, they don't, honestly, like, I'm being very fast and loose with my rules for this, and it could even just be a an author that is of that descent, of a different descent than just like an English-speaking country, or, it could be like, I don't know, like Nigerian American or something like that, just, and that are maybe writing about that particular country, that kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be translated, but this book is Norwegian, and it is translated. The next book is a maybe buddy read for June, because I plan to read this with my friend Janelle from Too Fond of Books. But if you watch Janelle's channel, you know that she is going through some pretty serious health stuff at the moment. So I told her we had, decided on reading this book in June before all this happened. So obviously I told her, you know what, you just let me know how you feel. I don't have to read this for any particular reason at any time. So I will just hold off reading this until you are ready to read it with me. So that is Thrush Green by Miss Reed. This was my pick for the World Book Day book battle, and it sadly did not win, but that doesn't mean I can never read it, right? So this is the book that I plan on buddy reading with Janelle. And whenever she is ready, this will be a nice comfort read, I'm assuming. So, yeah, Janelle, just let me know when you're ready to read this, and we can read it. I don't think it's going to be too difficult to pick up. So, and the last thing that I definitely want to, and the last thing that I am definitely going to pick up in the month of June is Henry V by Shakespeare. And I will be buddy reading this with my friend Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. And we have been vaguely trying to read some of the Shakespeare that we have yet to read. And as you know, I am one of the co-hosts for what was formerly called ShakeTube and what this year is going to be called Shaketember. And I feel like if I'm going to be a host, I should have read more Shakespeare than I actually have. I tend to focus on the comedies and like the romantic tragedies. I don't tend to gravitate towards the history plays. And Kelly and I read the 2 Henry IV plays last month, and they were not my cup of tea. So we'll see how Henry V goes. I am kind of assuming that I'm probably going to stick with the comedies as my favorites in Shakespeare's canon. But yeah, it is always better to read these things with a friend. So I am excited to at least be able to read this with Kelly, who I'm hoping will give me some better insight and will help me to possibly enjoy this play more than I'm anticipating. So those are actually all the books I have on my TBR, but I'm also going to be trying to participate in the categorically romance readathon that is run by my friends Sarah from the Bookish Knitter and Bree from Falling for Romance on Instagram, and that will be through, I believe, June 5th through the 20th. So I believe it's like 16 days, something like that. I will put all the information or link channels or whatever down below, so you don't take my word for the dates. But I don't read a lot of category romance. Like, I'm just new to the whole romance genre game anyway. So like my Harlequin reading is like, it might be none. I don't know if I've ever read a Harlequin. I don't know. So Sarah has been giving me some recommendations, and it's all going to depend on what I can find at the library or on Scribd. So I have some ideas. I definitely know that I want to read some Rayanne Thane because Sarah raves about her and believes that I will like her because she's not like terribly sexy. So I've had her on my list a few times for different readathons and just never got to her. So I definitely want to read a Rayanne Thane. And then I believe she told me that there is an African-American author who writes for the Love Inspired line. And I can't remember what her name is, but one of the prompts is to read from a diverse author. And so I think I'm going to try to find one of her books for this readathon. So I may not worry about like all the prompts. I just might see what I can find at the library or Scribd, and what Sarah tells me counts and read from there. So I don't actually have specific books picked for that yet. Just a couple of authors that I definitely want to make sure I get to. And then also my friend Angie at Literary Labors and Summer from Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, I believe is her channel name, are doing a readathon for the whole month of June called Pastoral June. And I basically, so many of the books I'm already reading would work for that. But I did pick out like a couple of other options that were things that I already thought that I might want to get to if I had some time. So let me show you what those are. So Angie and Summer are defining pastoral as either an actual rural setting or like a small town feel. So most of the books I read have that distinction anyway. But one of her prompts is to read a book with a rural scene, pastoral scene on the cover. So I am going to be reading actually the first in this series, and I will be reading All Creatures Great and Small, but I actually don't have my own physical copy of this. I picked this one up, The Lord God Made Them All, and I believe this is the second in the series, but I picked this up at a library book sale a few years ago, thinking that, oh yeah, I can probably find the other ones at another book sale, and then book sales went away. So, for reasons we will not discuss. And so I'm actually going to be reading the first in the series for this, but I have heard nothing but great things. I do not think that I will pick up, or I don't think that I will watch the miniseries because this is about a veterinarian, and I have a hard time watching like any kind of medical things, and especially bad things happening to animals. I don't like it. So I don't know that I'll be watching the actual miniseries, but definitely I can read it in a book, I think. I think. We'll see. And then another one of the prompts is to read a children's book set in a rural setting. So I decided to read Storm of Strawberries by Joe Cottrell. And this one definitely has a pastoral scene on the cover, but it is set in a strawberry farm. And this one centers around a young girl with Down syndrome. And I forget what the plot actually is, but it definitely centers around a little girl with Down syndrome. And I won this book from Krista from Books and Jams, I believe during one of the middle grade marches. I think. I know I won it from Krista, but I don't remember why. And I just never got to it during any of the middle grade marches. So I definitely would like to pick this up this month. And then last but not least, you saw in my previous weekly update a couple of weeks ago that I received some of the Port Danby series from friends for my birthday. So that has really spurred me on to want to like pretty much binge the series. So the next one I am going to be reading is Sunflowers and Sabotage. This is one that I already had. It wasn't one of my birthday gifts, but it's just the next one that I need to read. So, and it is set in the small town, coastal town of Port Danby. So I figure it fits for Pastoral June. And to me, that is a lovely, I mean, it's a town setting, but it's a small town setting on the cover. So I consider that pastoral. And there's flowers. What could be more pastoral than flowers? And one more. I was hoping that this would count for the categorically romance readathon, but Sarah told me that it is not because it has to be a Harlequin. But my neighbor gave me this book a long time ago, Windows on the Bay by the great Debbie Maycomer, and I have not read it yet. So I would like to read it, and being that it's Pastoral June, this seems like it's probably a small town setting by the bay. So I would like to pick this up maybe whilst sitting on my deck on a nice warm day, if it ever warms up again. I've been talking about my TBR for like the past half hour already. So let's wrap this up and just show you my small book haul for the month of May. Okay, so just as I was about to show you my book haul, my storage in my phone got full because I have been talking for a very long time. So I'm sorry that this is going to be a long video. But anyway, let's just move on to the book haul. So the first book that I got was The Magician by Kathleen Shoop. This is the third book in the Denora collection that I have been reading with my friend Amanda from her Pacific Northwest Washington life. And this series is all set in the town of Denora, PA, which is close to where I live. It's about an hour and a half away in the general Pittsburgh area. So, and this one centers around the childhood of an actual baseball player that was born and raised in Denora. I forget what the name is. Let me check. Stan Musial. That I forgot. The last book, The Strong Man and the Mermaid, that we read centered around Stan's parents before they were married. It was kind of like their courtship and growing up type story. So this one is going to center on Stan as a child. So I'm really interested to get to this. I am like a mild baseball fan. I do not consider myself a sports ball type person at all. But I enjoy watching baseball when I'm like around my friends or whatever, if we decide to go to a baseball game or whatever. So, and I used to, as a kid, collect baseball cards, weirdly enough. I don't really know why. It was a phase I went through. I would not be interested in doing that now. whatever. But Stan apparently never played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, but he grew up in Denora. So it'll be fun to read a fictionalized kind of biography-esque uh, fiction about his life. So yeah, I'm really interested. So far, I've really liked the other two books. I think they are very well written, and they both have been very different in tone to each other. So I'm really interested to see what style this book takes. I think we are planning to pick this up in July. And then the next three books that I picked up are not traditional books like reading fiction or nonfiction books. These are Bible studies. As you have heard me say, I am a Christian, and I have been reading the Mere Christianity book with some booktube friends. And for some reason, I just got convicted that I needed to start, getting back into reading my Bible and doing a prayer journal. And through watching some other videos on YouTube, I found out about the Daily Grace Company. And I got on their site, and their marketing really sucked me in because they have these books of the Bible studies. Let me see if I can hold them up. And I got three because they were having a really good sale where these were either $5 or $10. And I got three of them. And I got one on the book of James, which is my favorite book of the Bible, actually. And then I got two for the Psalms. I didn't see, there's way more Psalms than just 60. I think this is the second one. But I didn't see any for the other books, so I'm assuming they haven't been published yet. But so this one is the first 30 Psalms. This is the next 30 Psalms. So yeah, I'm really excited about these. These are really beautiful on the outside, but I have heard good things about the actual content. So I think that Krista from Books and Jams and I are going to be doing at least one of the Psalms studies together because she already had these books. So I'm probably in June going to pick up the James study. So I will let you know what I think about these if you are if you're into that kind of thing, if you want to study the books of the Bible more and have a interesting study to do. I flipped through this one and it looks pretty good. It just looks like a devotional type of a thing where there's a one-page summary or, kind of a study about it, and then it asks you some questions, and it is I believe this one is a 7-week study. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. And I have been doing a prayer journal. I've had it for a while, but I kind of go back and forth on how devoted I am to my prayer journal, and I have been keeping up with it for the last week, which isn't saying a whole heck of a lot. That's only 1 week, but I'm hoping to be pretty consistent with it from now on, and I want to be a little bit more consistent about reading my Bible too and studying the Word there. I had an original intent of reading the Bible in a year again, and I got really behind in March. So I'm gonna see if I can catch up. We'll see. I don't know about that, but anyway, this video is going to be way too long, so I will stop it there. And I hope that you all are having a good end to your May. Happy Memorial Day to those of you in the US, and I will talk to you in the near future. All right. Bye, friends.